talk about how the upperclassmen have meshed with the freshmen? It seems like there would always be a potential for some resistance there, especially when the freshmen are playing so much and assuming such a prominent role, that it sounds like that has not happened in those kids.
Well, I think in actuality, we're so shorthanded with only 9 scholarship players. There's a lot of playing time for just about everybody. Only Rodney Miller is the only one not playing like a significant amount of minutes. And guys like Bruce Brown and DJ Vasilevich immediately were accepted by the players. I think the players on our team realized what good guys they were off the court, what good players they were on the court, and Davon Reed and Jaquan Newton knew, hey, these are the 2 guys that really need to step up and help us if we're going to have a good back court. And then in the front court, DeJuan Ewell and Kamari Murphy and Buka Zundu and Anthony Lawrence, I think they all hit it off. I remember initially DeJuan and Anthony Lawrence talking about, hey, we're from Florida. We got to represent Florida. So those 2 guys became good friends, and they're a good combination for Kamari and Buka. There's a very healthy competition amongst the 4. And they share a lot of playing time as well. They're all playing significant minutes.
You talk about DJ. He seems to be a leader, even among the freshmen, even as a young guy. He is saying that he proposes ideas, even to you and to Davon. And I mean, he doesn't seem afraid, even as a freshman, to sort of assert himself.
Well, I think he's a very mature young man, a very conscientious young man. He understands things. When he first arrived, and I don't know if you remember me saying, offensively, he's not going to have a problem because he can really play offense. He's very skilled, he's smart, he can shoot, he can handle. His challenge was going to be at the defensive end of the floor. But I've been very, very impressed with how well he's defended. He's improved from September to October, then October to November. He took some major steps. And now I'm very, very confident in his defensive abilities.
Who else has maybe impressed you in that group with what they've been able to do, just how quickly they've adapted?
Well, I think they've all done a very good job. If you look at DeJuan Ewell, he's gained like 15 pounds. He's gotten a lot stronger. His offensive game is still a work in progress, but he's getting better and better, and he's working hard. He does a lot of individual work, what we call unrequired. Is that a word? I don't think it's a word, but it was a word we used in the preseason to say, look, practice is required. You need to be here, but during your free time at night, in the morning, if you can get in the gym when it's unrequired, you can really work on your game, and he's done a lot of that. Rodney Miller has made, I think, a very good adjustment. He had the longest way to go, though, because he was only benching 175 pounds when he first came. And Bruce Brown now benches 300. So you can see the significant difference in who was more physically ready to play. Amy, is there water around? Excuse me.
Jim, the transition of Jaquan from obviously a scoring first, 6th man last year to now a guy who needs to run your team. How has that gone? Was there any scoring point guard that you had him look at, be it another college player or an NBA player that you and your staff had him look at tape at that you wanted him to maybe pick up anything from?
Well, Jaquan and I have spoken many times, and he has spent a lot of time with both Coach Caputo and Coach Brunt, watching video and talking about his game. The player that he thinks he's similar to is Dennis Schroeder from the Atlanta Hawks. I don't necessarily agree with his thoughts, but he has to do so many things for us to be successful. From a defensive standpoint, he has to guard the point guard. He didn't have to do that a lot because Angel Rodriguez was here, and even when Angel was out of the game, we had Manu Lecomte, who guarded the point guard. He mostly guarded twos. So this is the first year in his career where he's had to guard the quickest, fastest guy who had the ball in his hands all the time. That's a major adjustment for him. And the second thing is he handles the ball for us, not exclusively because Bruce Brown and Davon Reed also take on some ball handling responsibilities, but he probably has it 70% of the time. And with that comes the responsibility of making a lot of good decisions. You know, when to shoot, when to pass, even what offense to call out. I don't always call the offense. I let the point guard oftentimes call what he wants. And like yesterday in practice, I got ready to call something. He called something else. I just let him go with it. And because sometimes he has a really good feel for what needs to be done.
Jim, how do you feel where you guys are at on your tempo? Is it about where you like, or as in pick it up? I mean, how do you think things have gone with that this point of the season?
Tempo is a funny thing. If you're a team that wants to play fast, it's almost a prerequisite that you create and develop a defense that pressures the basketball and makes the other team play fast with you. Duke and Carolina both play that kind of defense. They're out in passing lanes, they're pressuring the ball, they're denying wings, and they hope to get the game into the high 80s or 90s or even into 100. On the other hand, in the other end of the spectrum, you have Virginia. Virginia wants to control the game with their defense. So what they do is they spend a lot of time on offense with the ball, and that reduces the amount of time they have to spend on defense, kind of like football, you know, the time of possession. And what they do is they don't want the game to be fast. They want it to be played possession by possession. And so their ultimate goal is, I'll say, to be the first one to 50, whereas Carolina and Duke want to be the first ones to 80. We fall in between that. We're a team that can play fast, and against pressure, we normally play faster. Against the Dukes and the Carolinas, we've often been more of an attack team because it's very hard to just run half-court offense against them. They pressure you. However, because we're in that medium tempo, we can also slow down if we get into a game with a team like a Virginia or a Clemson who want to play to 50. So we're comfortable going both ways, but our goal is to score 75 points, to have 5 guys in double figures. Doesn't happen always that way. In fact, it doesn't happen that way that often. But if you look at our statistics, our goal is 75 points on offense and 60 on defense. I think we're right in that neighborhood in both categories right now.
Where's Notre Dame? Where's Notre Dame in that?
Notre Dame is an up-tempo team that averages in the mid to high 80s. And the reason they do, it's not because of their defense. It's because of they're one of the most proficient offensive teams in the country at shooting both the two-point shot and the three-point shot and the free throw. They have a number of guys who fall into the 180 category. 180 meaning they can make, if you total their two-point percentage, their three-point percentage, and free throw percentage, it will total 180. And a guy like Steve Astoria, he's a 180 guy. Matt Farrell, I think, is a 180 guy. Those guys are so proficient offensively, they can come down the floor and shoot from 30 feet, and it's a good shot. Or they can drive to the basket and make a contested layup, and it's still a good shot. Whereas most teams don't have the offensive skills that Notre Dame's team has. So a guy like Bonzi Colson, who's their leading scorer, he's 6'6". He plays the 4 and the 5. He's undersized at the 4, and he's really undersized at the 5, and yet he is the tougher matchup for teams. He is harder to guard than him having to guard a bigger guy. It's harder for the big guy to guard him.
Mike Ray was talking yesterday about his team's difficulties down here in the past, and he said Miami has treated our teams like boys when they come down here, talking about how you've done a good job of developing the program, so you've always had a lot of older players. And obviously
Yeah, this is not the case this year. We have two seniors. And his team is very old and very experienced. If you look at Steve Astoria and Beecham, they've got older guys who've been around, who've made it to the Elite Eight, the past couple of years. This is a very high-powered team that has a chance to go very far in the ACC and in the NCAA tournament because of their ability to score the ball.
But what about that change for you?
Well,
Different sort of challenge, obviously.
Well, during the course of my career, I've had that roller coaster ride.
Yeah.
I've had some young teams. In 2004, 2005, I think my team went 18 and 16. I'm not 100% certain of that, but it was around 18 and 16, just over 500. And after the season was over, I said, next year we are going to be great. Because the 5-7 guys that were coming back were all 5 starters and top 2 subs. We were going to be really good. And then we signed a couple of freshmen who ended up moving into the top 8. And we lost one guy to an ACL injury. But we were so experienced. And that was the year, that next season, we went to the Final Four. And then the same thing here when we had Reggie Johnson, Kenny Kaji, Julian Gamble up front, Trey McKinney-Jones, and Duran Scott in the backcourt, along with Shane Larkin. We had 5 really good seniors who could carry the load, and a great sophomore, leading the way. And then last year we had Angel, Sheldon, Tanya, and Yvonne Cruz-Uceda, older guys who had been through the ACC battles and really were battle tested. And we were very, very comfortable no matter where we were, whether it was home against Notre Dame or in South Bend against Notre Dame. We were very, very comfortable in those environments.
Coach, speaking of comfortable, although the name on the house has changed, it seems like the goal is still the same of always protecting the home court here, the streak that you guys have going on here.
Well, one of our goals when we first came was to establish a certain culture, a mindset of what it would take to win and compete with the best teams in the ACC. Part of that was to generate enough enthusiasm from the community that we could develop a home court advantage. And that meant getting the students to come out for games, getting the fans to come out for games, so that games would either be sold out or close to sold out every night. And over the last 2 seasons, we've been able to do that. In 2013, I think we had 5 or 6 sellouts, and in the last 2 years, every game has been a sellout. So we've developed that culture. I think that has helped create the enthusiasm in the arena. That's kind of given us that 6th man support that you need, especially during the ACC challenges where the opponent is such a high-level team, a top 25 team, and the fans help you carry you to the finish line.
Jim, what's your vision about what you want to see Dajuan Ewell be offensively down the road? Hitting what types of shots to be a high-impact ACC player eventually?
Yeah, I think one of the challenges for Dajuan is in his high school situation, he was able to average 19, 20 points a game by being a little bigger and more athletic than the players that he went against. At the college level, he's got to develop a little bit more skill and understanding as to how he's being guarded and how he can score within the framework of our offense. But we're also developing an understanding of his game, and we're making some adjustments in our offense. Hopefully that will give him some better opportunities to score the ball.
Would they be, you think, in the low post? Would you like to see him face the basket 15 feet? Could he develop a three-point game over time?
Oh, well, I think that's in his future, but it's not, this week. We need him to offensive rebound more, to get out on fast breaks and get in front of the pack more. We need him to hit a driving layup once in a while and a jump hook in the lane once in a while. If you just look at those categories, if he hits one jump hook, if he gets one driving layup, he gets one offensive rebound, if he makes a couple of free throws and makes one perimeter jump shot, that's 10 points right there. And that would be, fantastic if he could get to double figures.
What have you seen from him lately? Not just the points, but the shots. Is he having a tough time getting shots off or getting open or aggression?
Well, some of it is how do I put this? I probably would have thrown him the ball 10 times against Syracuse over the top of the defense throwing lobs. The only thing is we're not a great passing team in throwing a lob. So we threw 3 of them. 2 of them were turnovers. One of them was to Kamari Murphy, who dunked it. But had we had Angel Rodriguez, he might have thrown 5 or 6 of them that Jaquan Ewell would have caught. Some of it has to do with your skill level, his skill level and his teammates' skill level. And lob passing is not a strength of ours. When we played North Florida in the second game of the season, we threw 6 lob passes. All of those were turnovers. So I told the guy, you got to stop throwing it. But in my heart, I was like, I don't want to stop. I want us to look for that. I just want us to be more skillful in throwing the pass. So we're going to still throw it, maybe not as often as I would like, but we'll try, and hopefully Jaquan will be the recipient of some of those.
Jim, do you think you miss having a 10th player available who's a veteran 2-3 wing, the role that Muhammad was envisioned for? Obviously, it didn't work out. Or do you feel like you don't necessarily need one if you're fully healthy?
No, what we could use is a true low post presence who has a lot of beef. A Julian Gamble, a Reggie Johnson, even a Tanya Jakiri. He weighed 250. Now Rodney Miller weighs 250, but as I said, he's not strong like those guys were. Tanya wasn't strong like that as a freshman either, mind you. He had to put a lot of time into the weight room to get to the point he did. And same with Kenny Kaji, as a matter of fact, and Reggie Johnson. I said this, I don't know, it was to the team, I guess, when I told the team after the very first week I was here in 2011, we put them in the weight room to be tested. And the highest bench press of any player at Miami that April would have been the lowest bench press of any player at George Mason. That's how weak we were as a team. The following season, our championship year, we had 5 guys benching over 300, including Eric Swope, who was benching 360. So we went from being a weak team to the strongest and most physically mature team in the ACC. And Steve Donahue, who was at Boston College, said to me, we used to push you around. Now you guys are pushing everybody around. What have you done? And the biggest difference was a strength and conditioning program that emphasized strength.
Thank you, Coach.